This is Kavieng in Papua New Guinea. It's perhaps as close to heaven as you will find in this lifetime. But it wasn't always like this. In 1942, someone decided it would be a good idea to have a war here. The Japanese took Kavieng in January 1942 and did all the things the Japanese army usually did in those days. They massacred the Europeans living there, they oppressed the natives, and they set about fortifying the town for the inevitable counterattack. The thing is, that counterattack never came. You see, Kavieng didn't have the strategic importance that places like Guadalcanal or the Philippines or Iwo Jima had, and the Allies had discovered that the Imperial Japanese forces were just too damn suicidal to fight and surrender like reasonable people. So wherever possible, they bypassed Japanese garrisons and settled on simply sinking any ship or shooting down any plane trying to bring supplies through to them. The men here who dreamed of finding glory in a warrior's death instead withered and starved and died in their droves from tropical diseases. My name is Jase, and I've come to Kavieng to see where all this happened. I've decided to make a little film about my trip to Kavieng. It's not really going to be a very good film. I haven't been to any of your fancy film schools, and I don't really know how to use this camera. It only arrived in the post the morning of my departure. I mean, half the film I didn't even realise that the camera lens was coated in sea spray. But this is my little film, and for what it's worth, here it is. We're staying at Noosa Island Retreat just outside of Kavieng. It's a magnificent place. That's my missus, but she doesn't like to be filmed, so that's the last we'll see of her.
I haven't sat down and stuff.
I'm not filming you. First of all, we wanted to go tank hunting. I'd heard rumours that there were Japanese tanks just outside of Kavieng, and my trusty guide, a fella by the name of Junior, claimed to know where they were. So mounted on a pair of sturdy mountain bikes, we hit the road. Well, hit the jungle track. Now I'm afraid there'll be no nice shots of us riding along or anything. I could barely get the damn camera to work as it is, let alone try and ride at the same time. So let's just assume that each location was separated by hours of torturous pedaling and get on to our first find, a bunker. This is one of a network of Japanese observation towers and posts that run along the northern coast of the island. They were built to look out for the American invasion that never came. They spent 4 years here with only the occasional air raid to break the monotony, before the Japanese surrender in 1945. But what I think is the most incredible thing is that 60 years later, here I am, standing in their handiwork. And look at this, a spiritual icon looking more or less as it did when it was first set in the concrete all those years ago. Further along the track, Junior had another emplacement to show me, and this time it was a battleship's cannon. Taken from the ship, they were positioned along the shoreline to potshot at any Allied vessel that wandered within range. We saw half a dozen of these emplacements over the course of the day. And behind the cannon was another series of bunkers, but this time with a different function.
We got one play engine inside.
House power blow.
House power.
Yeah.
As the day grew on, it occurred to me that, although Junior was the man when it came to finding bunkers and cannons, I didn't really quite think he actually knew where the tanks were. Since the day was getting towards evening, it was time to take drastic measures and ask a local kid.
In the end, we enlisted a local guide who took us directly to the reef where they're meant to be located, out here.
Now, when we had started off this morning, I'd hoped to find something a bit like this, maybe a little rusted and worn, but more or less intact. However, the reality was really quite different, because you see, the Japanese had decided to drive their tanks into the ocean. Now, I'm not quite sure why they did this. In March 1944, fearing that they were about to be invaded, the Japanese massacred all the prisoners they had in town, and scuttling these tanks might have been part of that plan. Although I would have thought they could have come up with something a bit more effective than driving them into the water to rust. But, as we can see, it may take a while, but sticking a tank on a tropical reef is an effective way of destroying it. You just have to be patient. As a matter of fact, we were finding bits of tank everywhere.
Junior monkey tank. I'm gonna shoot him on the man. You shoot him peace.
All in all, by counting engine blocks and cannons, we worked out there were 4 tanks here, driven out into the sea by panicked Japanese, and now, a convenient rock to go fishing from. Next, we had a look around town. We had heard there were some cannons and monuments to be seen, but we had no idea where to find them. So I asked around and met Godfrey. On top of being an employee of Blockbuster Kavieng, he claimed to be an authorised tourist guide. And who was I to argue with the poorly laminated card in his wallet? But whatever his credentials, he knew where things were, and he showed us the secret bunkers of Kavieng, located on a bush-covered hill in the middle of town.
Can I stand with you?
Yeah, sure, man. Stand up top. Wait, okay, you come up. We go around. Ooh, cut.
That's Nusa.
Yeah, that's where we were staying.
Yeah.
Over there.
Now, to give you an idea of their location, remember this shot? This is the main wharf in town, and in those trees are these bunkers.
No, they could see the outcoming
The planes and
the
ships
planes
and things.
Ships and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Someone knocked it down or something?
Yeah, that's right. When after the war, they smashed it down.
Yeah.
They are incredible. We had not heard anything about them from anyone, but here they were, a natural cave system that honeycombed the hill that had been reinforced and modified by the Japanese for their needs. A whole fortress that commanded the harbour, yet was hidden by the jungle.
No, God, me lose some ting to spell me.
From here, fire could be poured down on any attacker and the defence coordinated, if any attack had ever come.
Go in. Oh, yeah, didn't notice him. There's no big spider webs or anything.
It'd be a good spot.
Yeah.
You can see everywhere.
See the whole harbour. You can see the north coast and everything.
Back on Noosa, we sat and considered what we had seen. I'd found much more here than I had ever anticipated, but our holiday was drawing to a close. Our time here was pretty much over, but for some, it was just another day in paradise. And as we got ready to leave, my thoughts kept returning to those men who died here, in the towers and on the beaches, in sunken ships and shot down planes in the harbour. We were going home, but my thoughts remained with those who never would.